All right.
Okay, welcome everybody to City Council. It's actually September 23rd, 2025. Isn't that amazing that I remembered that? Appreciate all you young ones being here. And should get an A+. You're all looking great. Let's see, Dave, let me ask one of these kids, would one of you volunteer to give us the pledge?
Just start us out.
Just start us out. Perfect. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave, could you lead us in a?
Do that. Our Father in heaven, we gather before these, we begin the city council meeting. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to convene. We're thankful for the freedoms we enjoy for this wonderful valley that we inherit. We pray that now that we might be sensitive to the needs of our community and make decisions that are in their best interest. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll all take a motion to approve the meeting's agenda.
So moved.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, do we have anything to alter on the minutes of the city council, September 9th, and the warrants on 9/8/25 to 9/19/25?
I did have a couple of questions on the warrants, but I is not here to answer it, so I'm not sure what to do with it.
You could hit him up after, Tony.
Steve, Janet prepared the minutes of the council work meeting. I'd suggest we approve those of August 12th, 2025 also.
Yeah, there was
Yeah, we approved the minutes, but not the work, right?
Yep, correct.
August 12th.
August 12th.
a entry for Morgan High School from Stuart Irby for $49,600. I was curious as to what that was, but I can find out later.
Yeah, ties up with his dad. We'll excuse him. And I have no idea.
And also might have grounds for coffee at $1,500. I was curious what that was as well. But
Oh, that's coffee.
was it Starbucks?
That's 10 cups of coffee. Okay.
Need a motion on that, Mayor?
And just for you students, next meeting, we'll approve tonight's agenda or our minutes, and all of your names will be in the minutes of attending. So, and it's Henry, right? Yeah. Henry, your name will be in there for leading us in the pledge. And
Yeah.
so everything that's done here, Janet is keeping minutes of. That's why we had you sign in. So that will be on public record.
And that'd be a good thing to take that copy and take it over there. Now, I've asked all of the students that have come, what's your requirement time-wise?
30 to 45 minutes or so.
Okay. I'm a believer in not keeping you late. But we'll probably be about done by then, so.
If we go 20 minutes, do they come back next week?
If we go short, they don't get credit.
Could be, so yeah, let's take a motion.
Make a motion. Minutes of the city council meeting September 9, 2025, and the warrants dated September 8, 2025 through September, wait a minute, yeah, September 19, 2025.
And the work minutes.
And the work minutes.
That was mentioned by
August 12th.
Councilman Alexander, August 12th, work minutes.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Tony.
I made the motion. Did you second it?
Mhm.
okay, do we have any citizen comments? I don't see any online, so we'll move on.
If you make a comment, you'd get your name in the paper, or, on the minute. so.
They're like, nope.
It's not worth it, huh?
Nope.
Okay, we have a presentation from Utopia, and this is a presentation, I understand, and not a question and answer. Well, that's what our city manager mentioned to me, but I guess if we want to throw a question or two in, we're
Well,
okay.
I'm concerned and welcome to bring up whatever you want.
Everybody knows Roger Timmerman, right?
Mhm.
What's a different picture on the screen though?
Yeah, I had hair back then. I need to update that.
And then you raise,
Not much, but there was
4 or
a
5
few.
years ago,
Yeah, well, it was just before COVID.
maybe even 6 years ago.
Six
It was a
or seven, yeah.
pretty good discussion we had here in Morgan City for internet and internet providers and how we were going to get better internet, and Utopia came and presented, and it was a pretty lengthy discussion of do we tackle and jump on board with Utopia, and that was one good decision we made. That the citizens have loved it, and my family has loved it's been great. So, but that was a pretty big decision that we had to make several years ago.
COVID, which is.
I would have loved to see it go countywide. Did I say that? I'm sorry.
Like to see that too.
And I think we realized back in that day, when we were trying to make that decision on fiber, that we realized that having fiber in our city anymore is almost about as important as having
The street.
Yeah, sewer or water. I mean, moving forward, we realized fiber was the future and we needed to get some pretty fast internet. So that was part of the decision-making process, was to try and get some speed, which I'm sure you all can appreciate speed when it comes to the internet, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, first, for those that haven't been here, I'll do a little bit of the history of it, but, and then an update as where we're at with things. So Utopia, originally we were 11 cities, and Gary Crane, who happens to be here, could probably be considered one of the founders of this thing. He was involved with the cities back from the very beginning of this, and we've got a lot of respect for him, having vision to help this thing get going back in the day. But it did start a little bit rough, but it was important to get it going, and the cities all recognized the need for internet. And this was back in 2004 when it originally started. We didn't have Facebook, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Netflix. None of those things even existed back then. So it was pretty revolutionary to kind of say, hey, we're going to need this technology and this connectivity. And then since then, we've had a lot of partnerships. And so you guys are pretty early in the growth of Utopia when we did go outside of those original 11. So you're the third one on that partner cities category. That's really a nice place to be. And Gary could probably attest to that, because it's you get the good and not the bad. That's one way to look at it. Because some of the original cities had to pay towards the original phase of the project, but Morgan City is not. We've never come to you and said, hey, you gotta pay for previous projects or anything like that. Your project has been able to just kind of piggyback onto what had already been built. And it's been very successful. So timeline wise, I mentioned those kind of rough years, and then things kind of turned around about 2009, and ever since 2009, every project we've done has been successful. And so you came in on that. It was about 2019 when we finished the build. We were talking a little bit before then, so it was probably 2018 when we were discussing this and figuring that out. I want to point out a few things about Utopia. So we are the largest open access network in the country. And we're also the largest municipal. We didn't used to be, but we cover over 260,000 addresses, which is a lot. And that's Utopia, UIA, it's these partnerships we have in Idaho Falls, Montana with Bozeman. We have some stuff brewing in California. But anyways, it's a pretty big project now. We have the fastest speeds in the country. It's pretty awesome that you can come to a community like Morgan and benefit from, the mountains and the character of the town and the city here and the beauty, but have better internet that you can get in Salt Lake and other of these major cities. And it's absolutely true. Our system is the most competitive system in the country. So you have 19 choices. Some people get frustrated. There's too many choices. It's hard sometimes to pick, but it's good to have choice. Anywhere else, you are lucky to have 2 choices, maybe 3 if there's a lot of competition. But to have, you do still have wireless options and probably DSL. Is that still around? I don't think anybody chooses to keep it, but it's there maybe. But you've got 19 providers available and competing with each other on the Utopia system. So that's more than any other system in the country. Over the last few years, we've been getting more connections from schools than anyone else. And so we work with other partners. This isn't just about homes, it's about the entire community. And that could be, for obviously our cities themselves, but for all the first responder needs, for security at parks or whatever it may be, utility systems to support that, smart city things, but also the schools, obviously, and they benefit from the system. And they don't pick us because they like us or because I'm a good speaker or anything. They pick us because we're the fast, obviously it would be the other way if that was the case. But they pick us because we're the best speed for the best price. We have to compete, and they do bids on those. And when we win those, that means we're saving them money and also providing them the best service. And so we're proud of that. Whenever we install our networks, we put in different smart city capability. One of those things is air quality sensors. And so just as a result of putting these in with our fiber huts, we looked at it and said, hey, it looks like we provide more air quality sensors in the state than anyone else. And we just keep putting them out there. And so when you look at things like KSL Weather app or other things like that show air quality data, there's a Morgan air station, and that one, it's over on our fiber hut. So we kind of enable those things just as part of what we do. We do a lot of other smart city things, a lot of the connectivity for in the parks for public Wi-Fi. Wildfire detection is a cool one that we need to get that deployed here. Well, I'll show you a little bit of that, but we have a net promoter score of positive 63. Each year we do a survey to kind of decide, see how likely people would recommend this to other people. That's the question you get asked for that specific metric. And a lot of people like it, and they would recommend us to their neighbors. Before we came here, people were very frustrated. We did a survey, and I don't remember if you remember doing that survey, but it wasn't just a 0, it was a negative score. People were like, I would not recommend what I have. I don't like it. It's terrible. That's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation, right? So people are very, very happy with what they have now. We have a very good Google rating score, 4.6 stars. The way this kind of works, we build that fiber. You probably already know this, but we build a fiber and you have all these different companies that compete. And these are mostly Utah-based companies, right? So not only are we enabling competition, but we're enabling local competition. So any profits and economic, incentive or not incentive, but benefits to the employees and owners of these companies and investors are right here in Utah for the most part. So it's really nice. It's not some big corporation out of state or something that this money and benefit goes to. The network you have here, I like to make this point. You do hear that there are other fiber networks out there. This is the best though, and I will defend that all day long. We build a dedicated system. Everybody gets the full speed of the system, and we have upgraded even since we initially built it here in Morgan, so that every address in the city can get a 10 gigabit connection. And that wasn't the case. We were doing gigabit and was like, well, we could probably do a 1 gig or a 10 gig here and there. But at this point, we have enough capacity that everybody could get a 10 gig. Most people don't still, but they'll get gig. And we did introduce a 2.5 gig option, since we started this project. And a lot of people are actually picking the 2.5 gig. So, that's not our cheapest option. Cheapest is 250 meg. And most people are getting gig, and increasingly people are picking the 2.5 gig. So it's not necessarily that we want to be good value, obviously, for the price, but people are wanting those speeds that you can't get on other systems. But back to our architecture, it's, if your neighbor's a bandwidth hog, it doesn't affect you. Like you get your own, whether it's a 1 gig, 2.5 gig, or 10 gig connection, it's always there for you and at full speed. And so other even fiber networks, they'll take an entire neighborhood and bring it all back to one fiber connection, and it's all time shared and split. So we don't do that for various reasons, but I just want to point out that you guys have the very best of that category of fiber networking. We ran some numbers specific to Morgan, and I thought you'd be interested here. So we look at this and say, what's available in most of our markets? Now, we don't have Comcast here, but if we assumed that you did, it would probably be the most popular other option. And in most of our cities, it is the most popular other option that's not Utopia. In that situation, the most similar product, which isn't as good and isn't as fast, but is the most popular, is $109 a month for a gigabit down and 50 meg up. And ours is gigabit down and gigabit up, and it's more reliable and it's not shared. There's all these reasons it's better, but just for comparison purposes, they're $29 more expensive for an inferior product. But if we just talked about that, $29 a month of savings for anybody who signed up for Utopia, that's a pretty good amount of money to save, especially as everything else seems to be getting more expensive. That'd be $348 a year. We have 1,190 subscribers, residential subscribers in the city. So if you were to just add that together, this decision is saving the residents $414,000 a year, every year, right now. And we keep adding more customers, so that number is going up. The businesses are also saving some money. So we just kind of average that about $50 a month in savings, but we actually think the average is higher than that of savings. Not to mention they're getting a way better service than they would get otherwise, but there's another $58,000 a year that you're saving the businesses in the city. That's an enormous benefit. Again, I think everybody feels the pressure of inflation and costs going up and everything. And it's like, this is a decision that's not just enabled connectivity and critical services and these benefits of what fiber brings from a technology perspective, but you've saved the residents real money by doing this at a cost to the city of nothing. So it's great. We've had enough people sign up that there's no shortfall. We haven't come back and said, hey, I've got some bad news. So did you have
I
question?
did,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you right here. Jeffrey and I was just talking about it. When we first looked at this, we had a number that had to sign up in order to make this
What
work.
was that take rate?
What-
did.
I
remember.
I've got it on one of the
It's like-
slides.
Do you? Okay.
Coming.
Okay.
What was it?
It's coming.
It's a surprise.
Come
I'm
on.
like, I remember there was a number we had to meet. I was like,
It was
you know,
a lot
I
less
don't
than
know if we're making
1,100.
it.
I'll actually
tell you that.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make it.
We were really nervous about that number back then, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember the number 1,190
Okay.
when we get to that number. But there's this study that was done on other municipal networks across the country, and they highlighted mostly Chattanooga, so we call it the Chattanooga Fiber Study. And based on the size of city you are relative to that study and what they came out with, over a 10-year period, sized to the size of Morgan, it would basically come out and say that there would be a $15 million economic benefit to the city, to your city. To theirs, it was like $2 billion because it was a big city, but that's enormous, right? And that takes into all the other stuff of the efficient government operations, education, business, a lot of things that benefit from the network above and beyond just saving people money. So anyways, it's enormously beneficial to the city. This is our subscriber growth over time at Utopia. So Gary would probably really appreciate this because he's seen this chart over many years. When they hired me, it was about 14,000. We just hit 78,000 subscribers. So it's grown dramatically. Some of that's been through city partnerships, but a lot of it has been in the existing cities. And so as we look at that on a city by city basis, this is what this chart is. Even those cities that have had it for a very long time have continued to add customers and grow their take rates. The demand for fiber has been very, very strong and consistent over 20 years. We've been at this, 21-ish. And you'd say more than that because there was a lot of years of getting it started too. But the first customers came on in 2004, 2005. So it's been about 20 years. All right, this chart is when it became available. So from our perspective, that represents construction completion. So a lot of cities, it comes on in phases, but we just had one big phase in Morgan for the most part. And so basically it was finished, that'd be like the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020. Now is growth since then because you keep building more homes, and I don't know why it went down at one point. We get some errata data from the county when we import records and things, so I blame them, but that's roughly accurate. But so that's when it became available. Basically the beginning of 2020. And then this is when people signed up and got installed. And you can see they came on very, very fast. And, say, hey, that number was in like the low 400 range that we needed to hit. That wasn't a problem. The actual number's in a later slide here. But we blew past that number and doubled it very quickly. And then they've continued to come on, but not as dramatically because there weren't a lot of people left to sign up. So very, very successful. This is a map of who has the service. The bit blue is business and red is residential, and you can kind of see pretty much everybody has it. Like it's very, very popular. When we say that there's some percent of people or take rate that we don't have, a lot of times we find that that's like an empty field or something, right? When we actually look at businesses and homes that are there and would use the service, there's not a lot of reason not to have it, especially in this city. So here's some of the specifics. We were first talking, we said, we're going to issue these bonds. There's going to be 169,000 a year. When we went to the market and sold the bonds, actually came in pretty close to that. Sometimes it changes, but we were really close on the actual market conditions and rate. Usually we intentionally put headroom in there, but the headroom, we used it up, unfortunately, but that's okay. Still good. So it ended up being 169,000. We needed a certain number of subscribers. Now, if you considered them just residential, we needed 470, but at the time, I think we discussed, well, some of them are going to be businesses and so there ends up being a blend of different subscribers, but really what's needed is revenues. So I think we were closer to 400 and assuming that we needed some number of businesses on there too. And if we didn't have that, then we'd come back and say, well, you gotta make a payment on a shortfall, and then it becomes a loan to Utopia. And then someday we hope we would pay that back to you, but we've never touched that. The current number of subscribers, 1,190. But we've actually had to spend a lot more money on this project than that initial amount. But because of good reasons, right? It costs money to connect a customer. We connected an extra 600, 700, almost 800 customers than what was bonded for. So you've grown the city. We keep growing with you and adding. We also, the original project did go over budget, but we took that. I think there was a boulder the size of a school bus under the freeway that kept breaking all the drill heads, and there was all sorts of problems trying to get across the freeway. We lost a lot of money on that, but that's okay. We're like, I think we'll be so successful on this project, it'll work out. And the revenues are higher than what was expected, so we're good. So again, I make point here of the additional costs have all been covered from the additional system revenues. And so the current status thing is we just call that sustainable, like it's fully sustainable, meaning the revenues from the system are supporting all of the costs, all the maintenance, all the debt service, everything is being covered from voluntary subscriber revenues. It's just a beautiful thing, right? Again, there's been no cost to the city. If we said, hey, you're gonna have to pay something on this, I'd make the case it's worth it. Of all the things the city can do, this is one of the very best things you could do. But the fact that it actually pays for itself has been amazing. We hope to continue that. We continue to see new development and growth in the city, so we don't really feel like there's any risk on this thing. It's really been awesome. The financing terms and agreement all end in 2044. At that point, we don't have any debt service on this thing, and we hope, we have a whole bunch of different projects at different timings. And we maintain the same price structure everywhere, but as debt service for projects falls off, we, either maintain our price structure if despite inflation, which effectively lowers it, or maybe we even can dip that down and drop off the cost of what the debt service would be. That's still a long ways out, but it's a good problem to have and a good problem that we forecast out there. We're like, this is gonna be awesome, right? So, I mean, it's a very competitive, good price for what you get today, but it wouldn't be a terrible thing if it was 20 or 30 bucks cheaper too, so. But for now, the price is the price, and we use that to pay for the debt and the operations of the system. Couple other things, I mentioned that we've updated this, so we have that new 2.5 gig tier, which is good. When we started this, we said we would support a 10 gigabit service, but it would be basically installed on a case-by-case basis. And it would be expensive because of that. And it was $300 a month. And that's the ultra premium 10 gig that, super geeks, I guess, would buy. But that's now down to 150 bucks. It's half the price. And actually, we have people sign up, and we have people in Morgan that have the 10 gig product. I think for some people, they really are the heavy user and the geek, or they want the bragging rights. For other people, they think, well, my company will pay for my internet up to a couple $100, so I might as well get the best. So we see more and more of that because we have seen a dramatic shift to remote working, and so people take advantage of those company reimbursements. But for whatever reason is, and we don't care, we just want to give people the service that they want to buy, and we do see more people ordering that 10 gig service. But the 2.5 gig really has picked up a lot, and that wasn't even available before. We see lots of cool stuff coming. We keep I guess, let me see here in development section. We have a new apps and improvements on our online stuff, both for subscribers. They can schedule their installation now. They can do a lot of kind of self-provisioning of things. We also have more tools for our service providers so they can run more efficiently. Better monitoring, better maintenance. A lot of stuff's happened that's kind of behind the scenes, but making the system better. We keep doing more smart city applications, working with cities. It's a very kind of custom thing. Like we kind of sit city and say, hey, what do you guys want to do? And work through that. And Ty's been really good to work with here. But we still owe you a camera, wildfire camera though. So I'm gonna get that going. And then we see future stuff like VR, AI, these acronyms like virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence. If you see, every January there's a consumer electronics show where they show like, here's all the cool, crazy future stuff that's coming, and that stuff ends up in our homes someday. And what we love to see is like, hey, these security cameras that you could put in your house, they keep getting better and better resolution, and they start using more and more AI. So rather than just like missing everything, it's like, oh no, this is an intruder and I can alert, or I know this is a deer, or I know this is it can identify things automatically, and it can react and do, amazing things. But it needs low latency, it needs high capacity, it needs cloud connectivity, and all these future applications that we see, there's something in common, and that is that they'll need a lot of really good broadband. And they need it to be fast, and they need it to be reliable. And that all bodes very well for the future of people staying on the network and more people signing up. This is, if you guys heard about that fire in Provo, South Provo, this was imagery from our thermal camera that was actually in Orem. It wasn't designed to pick up fires off the bench of South Provo, but we can turn these things. And So we turned it and watched the fire over there, but you can see the optical imagery is on the left and the thermal imagery is on the right. Depending on the smoke or the time of day or whatever, you know, the camera on the right may be far more useful for identifying hot spots versus the left. And sometimes the left is good. Well, it's cool. It's a double camera. It has two on there, and these under normal circumstances just sit there and scan over areas. In fact, if I can figure out how to do this, I could show you one live. Let me see if I can get this to work. Yeah, so this is, it kind of stutters over Zoom. It's actually much smoother than that and with the version I'm looking at. But we have these cameras in different locations aimed at high-risk areas for wildfires. And so, you know, our first responders can log into these and view them and use them. If there's an incident, we can stop them, zoom in to the areas, which can be very helpful to them, what's going on. And I think more often than not, they've just used it to throw out false positives. Or somebody calls in, there's a fire, and they're like, well, let's take a look. Oh, no, it's a car. That's usually what it gets used for. But that's very useful, right? You're not wasting resources, scrambling people out, trying to figure out what's going on. So we do need to identify the location, but and they can kind of go around 360. So we could cover a lot of area and target bench areas. But there's a bunch of these out there, different cities. I don't know what's going on with that one. Maybe we need to go restart that one, but that's the oldest one. Did I already show you Layton? Or was it Orem? I can't remember. It's the Orem one here. Anyways, just one of the things you can do when you have connectivity, there's not a huge barrier to like implementing these applications. Without the connectivity, a lot of them don't even work. There's not a way to do it. So anyways, we're just excited to be able to support that. And that's all I got for you. But I'd love to hear your feedback on how you feel things are going. And I do want to express our appreciation. I mean, let me say that was a big decision. It was kind of scary for all of us, right? We never know how these things are really going to go, but we have very educated guesses, right? We did surveys, there was a lot of work, research done. But even then, it was, putting taxpayer money potentially on the hook for a project. And, we appreciate the trust that was put in us. But it's been a great partnership, both for us and I believe for the city. I hope you feel that way. But again, I just thank you for the opportunity to come and provide an update, and I'd just love to hear anything you have any feedback from you or complaints or whatever it may be.
Yeah, Roger, how big of a competitor is cell service?
It hasn't been historically. So we've seen the cellular companies buying spectrum and deploying kind of a parallel network. So cellular networks really don't have the capacity to even touch this. In fact, their networks would just stop working if they tried to serve homes off of the same mobile connectivity. But a lot of them are like, well, I've got towers and I've got fiber to these towers. So in parallel to the mobile service, they'll bring up what they call fixed wireless, and that runs on different frequencies and different radios, but it'll still be shot off from the cell towers. And so they'll run that, Verizon Home Internet is that sort of a service. And that one they can go out there and get a certain number of customers, and then it starts bogging down. And so they kind of cherry pick just enough. They want some customers, but they don't want everybody because it's very limited. As they've gone into our areas and tried to sell it, we look at those charts and we're like, how's it going? How's it going? And like, no impact. So we have seen absolutely no subscriber loss. And I'm sure there's some that, this pushy door-to-door sales guy convinced somebody, but statistically, we've seen no impact from fixed wireless. We've had some of our cities get overbuilt with another fiber company though. And in those ones, we do see a little bit of an impact when they first come in and they offer a promotional rate. Sometimes they'll come in with some predatory pricing and price it under cost just to try to get people, and they'll send door-to-door people to go sign. So we had a period of time in Brigham City and Centerville where we lost customers because of that. And then you watch that as soon as the salespeople have moved on and their promotional rate expires after about 6 months, they all come back.
Okay.
So even with another fiber option in the communities, we are still doing better than they are, and even, I would say, amazingly well. We actually would have expected to.
Is there any emerging technology out there that could be a significant competitor?
I mean, we look at everything. I mean, the ones that we see out there would be fixed wireless. Fixed wireless keeps getting better and better, but still isn't touching us. We see Starlink out there, right, with the satellite service, and we're like, well, it's 110, and now they're raising it to 120, and we're like, well, price competitively, it's not anywhere near us. It's way more expensive, and it's way slower, and it's unreliable. And to solve their problems, they need to launch, 100 times more satellites. Their satellites have a 5-year lifespan, and only, I think the biggest problem is that it's math. And what I mean by that is when they launch 10,000 satellites, right? That's a lot of satellites, but they have to go around the whole Earth. And the surface area of the United States, the entire United States, only is about 6 to 7% of the Earth. And so only 6 or 7% of those satellites can even be available to provide service here. And each of those satellites is limited at a they're hoping someday to achieve 100 gig. You're like, well, I've got more than 100 gig. I can do 400 gig to your hut over here. And their satellite, which they have like 1 or 2 for all of Utah at a given time, and that's kind of how they scale out at that scale, for an entire state, is way more limited than what we have right here in your neighborhood. Like they're so many orders of magnitude away from even be able to try to compete with this type of connectivity. They've got some problems there. Now, if I'm in a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, awesome. It's like, I love the technology of what they are able to do where there is no other connectivity. But if you've got a fiber there, I'm like, there's no path forward where it would ever make sense to choose Starlink over a fiber connection.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's cool stuff.
Yeah, yep.
So, Roger, a lot of times if I'm at like a league of cities and towns or something like that, and people have come up to me in the past few years aware that Morgan City has Utopia, I get a lot of people asking me, what my feelings are, or how I think it's gone with Utopia. And I almost get the impression sometimes that they're thinking way back, and looking for me to say something fairly negative about it. And all I can say is it's been great. I have absolutely no complaints. It's been one of the best things that I think we've ever done. So it's been a great service to me personally and to our city as well. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. And it was, we had a lot of discussion. It was a tough decision, but I'm glad we bit that bullet and did it, because it's worked out very well. So.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that message. I mean, we had a reputation to overcome, and it wasn't because of anything wrong that Utopia did. It was just a difficult time. Demand wasn't there. There was legal obstacles and other things, and some cities found themselves with the cost of the project without it being available throughout their city, right? Of course, the city would be frustrated with that. But every single one of those cities now would say it was one of the best decisions they've ever made, even the ones that were through the worst of it. Like, and Gary would probably be like even Centerville, like, yes, even Centerville, word for word, said this was the best decision they ever made. And that was after many years of arrows and fights and arguments.
Yeah.
But we just had to get to the finish line with those cities. And then they, once they had it available to them to benefit from, they're like, this is fantastic. And
I just want to add to it too. I really look at this as we were very, very fortunate, a godsend that this happened right before COVID.
When it
We've
did.
talked about that when we went in, and because at that point in time, it forced a lot of people to start working remote. And both me and my wife now work remote when I'm actually at home, when I'm not traveling. And it's amazing that we both can be doing our work on Teams, doing meetings. and not even have a hiccup on the system, like not even. And as I travel the Western United States, I run into a lot of people, to Tony's point, and I'm like, I got fiber right in my house, and I just, we're fortunate to have it here, because as I travel around, there's a lot of places, I cover Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, out in and a lot of them just suffer from even having connectivity. So we are very fortunate here to be able to have this service, and we're thankful that we could partner with you. And it was a rough decision at the time.
At the time.
At the time, it wasn't taken lightly, but anyway, we appreciate you and appreciate all that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
I
And
just want to mention that you're successful when your phone isn't ringing. When things are quiet and you aren't getting all these complaints and
nobody complains to you about the broadband in the city? Is that good?
not at all. And I'm sure these kids love it. They just like
They're
the
using it
rest of
right
us.
now. I mean, how many of them?
Yeah.
How many of them on the Wi-Fi? All right. Thank you. And
Thanks for
and
coming
I
up to Morgan.
always gotta say thanks to Gary, because he made the connection saying, hey, if there's a place that could benefit from this, and got us in the same room and started those conversations. So of course, we have a lot of appreciation for Gary.
We feel towards Gary like we do towards Utopia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make?
Thanks, kids.
Yeah.
Now, those that need a picture for your class, if you want to stand there and take a selfie,
Thanks, Roger.
Picture. No.
No, it's not over yet.
Nobody knows.
30 minutes.
Half an hour. But don't hold me to that.
See, if you look at your agenda, we just cleared 4. We've got 2 items on 5 to discuss yet.
But on the one on the election is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Oh, yeah. These are so, I almost.
Travis, you missed citizens' comments already. We wanted to hear from you.
I can back up.
Huh?
Would you like to make, did you want
Oh.
to make a comment? Well, well, no, I mean, but it's just very different for a citizen to show up. Usually they have something to say.
There's a reason they're here. Hey, good.
There you go.
Nice.
Appreciate that.
Good.
I will say that, and not to bad mouth anyone, but Ace Hardware was on Country Road. And we switched West Excision.
Oh, amen.
Sure. Okay, well,
Can
we,
My comment.
Oh,
can I
Gary.
make a comment
Yes.
before Roger leaves? One of the most difficult thing that Utopia's had to deal with is the opposition from the incumbents.
yeah,
Since the very first day that we went up on the Hill and tried to create a law that would allow cities to do broadband, we've had pushback from the biggest incumbents in the United States. And I could tell you stories, but I won't. But I mean, one of the biggest misnomers was that it costs $2,600 to just hook up. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't cost a dime today to call Utopia and have them hook your home up, because of the fact that we're able to cover those costs. But the battle is never over in that realm. And it is important that the cities really, really watch carefully what they do up at the legislature, because that was what I did for 30 years, for as long as Utopia was even an idea, from the time it was an idea. But you saw probably about a year ago, you saw advertisements against government getting into the internet business. And I don't know if you remember those on TV, but they came out and they go, government should not be involved in internet. Well, Utopia is building infrastructure and they are doing it the way that it should be done. We build the highways and Federal Express, all the other companies use the highways. Utopia builds the fiber. 19 companies use that to make a living and do very well making a living. But they ignore that and they indicate, you know, that government is essentially taking over internet and controlling what you hear on the internet. You saw those advertisements some time ago. And they're connected to, when I did my research on it, and others have done theirs, it's connected to what I call dark money. Money from, you can't really trace where it comes from, but ultimately you know because of the individuals who are backing it and the lobbyists that are lobbying up on the Hill against it. But even to current times, cities that are part of Utopia, that are part of this fabulous network, have to be very strong in dealing with our legislators and educating them and letting them know that this is a utility. It is something that the city should provide as vital as electricity, as vital as power, you know, sewer and the other things. And then let competition, those 19, the only company in the United States or the only system in the United States that promotes that type of competition. We build the freeway, you come and use it. Anyone can come and use it. And they innovate on it, and it's just marvelous. But I can tell you that the biggest companies in the state of Utah right now have not finished fighting Utopia. When they went to try and put it in Bountiful, there was an all-out war between CenturyLink and Bountiful. And we can, I'm not going into the negative, but the story is that they lost essentially on a technicality when they were trying to put that together. And Bountiful now has Utopia. All of Bountiful has Utopia, which is great because I had nothing when I lived up there. And if you ask a number of the cities around here right now, what type of connectivity they've got, I happen to know the city attorney for a certain city just to the south of us who says, is there any way you guys can get Utopia into our city? Because we have horrible connectivity right now. We're promised the moon, but didn't even get off the planet. And so what I'm saying is, and the reason I'm raising this is because I know that dark money still exists. And I know that there are organizations outside of the state of Utah that are working at trying to kill these types of networks as they are built and as they're constructed based on what I call out and out lies. And so it's really important that the cities that are part of it, you know, support it, and we'll keep an eye on it this legislative session. I don't do very many things up the legislature anymore, but Utopia is one of the things that I do keep an eye on. And right now we have at least a president who just got his home, a new home that he built, the president of the Senate that just got his home connected to Utopia and loves it. And so we've got leadership in a position where they do love it and they've protected it. But, you know, that could change tomorrow and all of a sudden the network we could be fighting a different battle. But I'm not trying to, these aren't scare tactics, but when you see advertisements come the way that they came just about a year ago, and you're sitting thinking, who's doing that? Well, you know where the money's coming from. 5 out of the 9 biggest contributors to lobbying in Washington, D.C., and it's millions of dollars a week, are telecommunications companies. 5 out of the 9. And so you know where where the competition's coming from, where the pressure's coming from. It's a big business. And so anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's a
Good
battle. It's a
information.
continued battle.
What I can say to the students, that's probably the science in politics.
There you go. Yeah,
Be aware.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Okay. Let's go to active agenda discussion. An action on a resolution of the City Council of Morgan City, Utah, declaring candidate uncontested and canceling the municipal election, resolution 2524.
I read through the resolution. I don't think there's a whole lot to discuss here. Having said that, then I would just make a motion that we adopt resolution 25-24, which is a resolution of the city council in Morgan City, Utah, declaring candidate uncontested and canceling the municipal election.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Before we do that, may I make a comment?
Mhm.
For those that are here, what we're doing here is we had, the mayor was up for election and two council members were up for election. And they're all running unopposed, or uncontested, so that's why we are doing this resolution, just so you know what we're doing here.
We didn't have any write-in contestants, so.
So you're just like bypassing an election.
Right, we did, this resolution is canceling the election because there's
No election to be had.
really no need for it, so.
I used to print out ballots and spend
Yeah.
the money to.
Save the money.
Election when it's, all the seats that were open are uncontested or unopposed, so
And that's the city, it's the city.
Morgan City, right? Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Janet, that's unanimous. Now, item B, discussion and action, an ordinance amending the zoning designation of a parcel. That's tough.
Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah, of property containing a total of approximately 14.42 acres located at approximately 948 north, 650 east by changing the zoning designation thereof from the existing agriculture to commercial highway on 0.80 acres of the 14.42 acres, providing for the amendment to the zoning map, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, ordinance 2514. And we'll call on Jake to get us started.
Good evening. It's great to see all of you and be with you remotely. I'd be there faster if I were on Utopia. But by the way, our plans for the plaza on the alley do call for some public Wi-Fi using Utopia. We think that'll be a nice amenity in the plaza. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. And there we go. And so what we have before us is an application by a local applicant to rezone 0.80 of an acre. It was total about 1 acre. And then when you take out the roadway, it goes down to 0.8. It's located next to the Young dealership on the freeway. And the current zoning is agriculture, and the proposed zoning by the applicant is highway commercial. Last week, this was at the Planning Commission. There was a public hearing. No comments against it from the public. And the Planning Commission did vote in favor of it. The total lot is 14.42, and the remainder as ag is 13.6. And that may change a little bit depending on the roadway for it. I'll just run through a few maps and give you a little bit of background. What's allowed in commercial highway, retail services, and then also office, hospitality, bed and breakfast. There's also a number of other zoning options that the applicant could apply for if he had the rezone with a conditional use, such as automotive and some different ones as well. Here's some of the conditional use ones. Like I said, auto, large retail, like big box, mid box, hospitality, contractor storage, animal care, and institutional like daycare. This is where the property is located, right next to the dealership. There's the parcel as is. There it is on the zoning map, with it being ag, and then highway commercial next door, and then ag to the north. In the general plan, it is indicated as highway commercial for the future land use. There's a site photo. Relatively flat. I mean, it does have a nice slope heading to the south, but no significant slopes or wetlands or river, any of that sensitive lands. This is the plat provided by the applicant. If the zone does go through, then the plat application would be handled by staff because it's a small lot. It falls under a range for the small lot. So both the pre-plat and the final plat would be by the Administrative Land Use Authority, which is Gary Planning and Engineering. And then there it is right there in terms of the lot, and then also the roadway dedication, 60-foot right of way. And this, if it were developed, it would have to include the street, sidewalk, curb and gutter, and utilities, full improvements for that section. This is a concept plan provided by the applicant, although he indicated at the Planning Commission that they're still looking at a number of different design options and that this may not be the final plan. But looking at some office, maybe some contractor storage, which if that's the case, you would have to go for a conditional use. One thing I want to mention is that the Planning Commission recommended approval, but also with that is that that if the lot the subdivision didn't happen, then it would revert back to the city to consider changing the rezone. And Gary may explain the legality of this, but it would come back to the city, and then the applicant would have a chance to state their opinion on it, and then the city council would consider if they'd want to rezone it back to agriculture. And that condition is only put upon if the subdivision didn't go through.
And that's, excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you're good.
That's a legislative decision on your part as to whether or not you want to revert it back to agricultural. The question arose, David asked a good question, as to whether or not the applicant had to make that application. And typically the applicant does, but the city also has the authority to be able to change the zoning even without an initial application. But the reality here is, I don't know why somebody, if they were not going to build on it or develop it as commercially, would want to leave it as commercial and pay taxes as commercial. And they may want it to go back to agricultural until the entire parcel is assembled or until there's further development there. But once again, that would be entirely up to you as a council to make that determination. And the applicant, of course, would give their input, and you'd likely go along with whatever they desire.
Would
We
it be part of the motion, Gary?
No.
Need to do that. You have that authority to do that without making a motion or including that in the motion. Reversionary zoning is not legal in the state of Utah. In other words, we're going to rezone this, but if these conditions, conditional zoning is not, reversionary zoning is, but the conditional zoning is not allowed in the state of Utah. So you can't say, yeah, we'll approve your zoning subject to this, this, and this, and this. You can do a development agreement, you know, before the zoning goes into play, but there's no need here because it isn't a big development. But automatically reverting zoning is not something that Utah law allows. So it would need to come back to you as just an application for a zone change. And you consider it as any other application. And there's logic in that because it's a legislative act. And if the zoning is changed, it ought not to be automatic. It ought to be subject to your.
Hence an additional public hearing.
Yes, yeah, public input.
So we could approve the ordinance either way then, just standalone or with this additional provision.
I would just not even worry about the additional provision.
Yeah, I like that. Just
Just
as
approve
we,
it up
yep,
or down the way
yep,
that it
as we
is.
typically would.
If it meets the general plan and
Sure.
it does. So
Yep.
So Jake, could you go back to the permitted uses?
Yeah. So here's the permitted and then below I have the
So
conditional.
this essentially is gonna be an office and storage?
Well, I think we should ask, I saw that the applicant was there earlier. Is he still there? So when I'm done, I would suggest we ask him what he's thinking. These are what is allowed as a permitted use, but you'll notice next door is automotive, and it easily, obviously it could be that was approved as a permit or a conditional use. So it also could be one of these items as a conditional use as well, assuming they meet all the conditions and the planning commission approves it.
So, Gary, so we could grant this rezone, but we could also require a conditional use permit that would need to be.
that would be required if he came in with a use that required a conditional use permit. And so I'm not being sure yet what he's going to bring in.
Yeah.
You know, we would apply the conditions of a conditional use permit to this application if he comes in with a conditional
Yeah.
use.
I think tonight the zoning question is just either a thumbs up or a thumbs
Right,
down.
yeah.
Correct.
There will be more discussion later.
Mhm.
It might be a good time for our applicant. We all know you, but state your name anyway.
Garrick Richens. And it's right now, we're just planning on an office space, and then flex space type thing for rental as well. So something along those lines. So some of the uses are undetermined right now.
You mentioned in the, and I'll just pass this on to the council, but you mentioned in the planning meeting that you would not be storing equipment on site.
Correct. Yeah. So for the section that I'll be using, it's just office space. So I own a small construction company, but all of our work's out of state. And so it's just a place to have a little quiet so I can get work done. So,
Apart from your basement, huh?
yeah. Any other questions?
Just a comment, and this is no reflection on what you're doing here tonight whatsoever, okay, so please. When we put this zone in place, I had in mind, we had a fairly nice large piece of ground down there, and I always had in mind of putting something in there that could possibly generate revenue for the city, you know, that required quite a lot of visibility from the interstate and, you know, and again, this is no reflection on you whatsoever, but anyway, that was kind of my thought when we developed this zone. Was it's got some good visibility. It would be a good location for a business that would require visibility. Put something in there that could generate some sales tax revenue for the city. So it's fine. It's certainly not what my dream was for that piece of property, but anyway, I just had to say that. So, yeah,
We're hoping that some of those other renter units will drive some of that revenue. So, yeah, that's our hope, but understandable.
Any more discussion?
I have two items, Steve. Jake, on your report, the second, this is not a big deal, but the second to the last bullet point says located within the sensitive lands district. You've got
Oh.
yes, that's probably should be no.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Thank you.
And you also say it doesn't appear to be in sensitive lands.
Yeah. So
And then secondly, the Planning Commission, a packet was provided to them, and that's what Jake has just reviewed. Janet, would you make that available to the council from here on out, that same information? Yeah, that same packet, we didn't have that for our meeting tonight. Just include that same packet with information that shows that, pardon? Yes, the one that's provided to the Planning Commission, or a link. I mean, a link's fine too. Just save a couple of steps of having to go look for it. And you can see the information that is valuable, pictures and engineering diagrams, as well as Jake's comments and recommendations. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, one thing I thought I'd mention is this meets the minimum size, which is 20,000 square feet in the zone. But in the future, if the council want to talk about bigger projects, we could look at that ordinance in terms of upping the size of businesses or lots in highway commercial. But that would be a future discussion. I just want to plant that seed, and then you tell me if we want to bring that back at some point.
Well. Need a motion or?
Mayor, I'd propose that we adopt ordinance 25-14. Seeing that the proposed rezone is compatible with the general plan, we'd adopt an ordinance amending the zoning designation of a partial portion parcel of property containing a total of approximately 14.42 acres, located approximately 948 north, 650 east, by changing the zoning designation thereof from the existing agriculture to commercial highway on 0.8 acres of the 14.42 acres, providing for the amendment to the zoning map, providing for the repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion from Dave, a second from Eric for ordinance 25-14. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Janet, that's unanimous. Sounds like you get to move some dirt. Okay,
Good night. Thank you.
See you later.
we have any reports from the city council?
There's this information tonight, and the proposal was, of course, part of the Planning Commission, but there was a couple of other things talked about, and I'll just share that with the council. In the Planning Commission held a work session, and Jake talked about the Morgan City Downtown Parks and Trails Plan, a discussion. Rather than having independent and separate plans, his goal is to tie those all together and make them part of the general plan. I think you mentioned, Jake, it's been about a year in the works. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So anything you want to add on that?
I would just add, so we're taking the current general plan and then updating it, adding the downtown plan as part of this downtown process. the parks plan and also the trails plan. So that way it'll be integrated into a single document. People don't have to look for additional documents.
Yeah, just
And-
have it in one plan.
And what I'd like to do, I think we'll have one more meeting with the planning commission to look at it. And then I'm thinking we do a joint workshop to look at it. And then after the joint workshop, then we can go through the public hearing and all of that. But that'd be a good time for your input on it. And as part of that, this is the time to update the future land use for the whole city. It's perfect timing. I know there's some discussion on that. And so that would be coming as well.
Thank you. Was it you that mentioned also that a transportation study by UDOT's close?
Well, the UDOT region planner, Ryan, told me that Morgan City was really close at getting that money. It was a conversation I had with him. It wasn't an official email or anything like that. But that was just a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything since. I can follow up. But I know the mayor's been having discussions with UDOT on that, so I'm hoping that
Exciting
soon.
news.
That's been kind of on the books for 2 years. So
There we go.
hopefully it can move forward a little.
Yes, and my understanding is that would help us do a comprehensive transportation plan for the city, but then also we could really focus on some of the detail areas that are a big concern. You know, the interchange and State Street, I think, are certainly top of my list.
Thank you, Jake. There was also the second part of the meeting, the regular general session of the meeting. They talked about updating the zoning ordinance. As well, of course, as well as the general plan that you're talking about, but invited a fellow John McKay and Gary, who I'm not sure who John is, and he had some concern about our historical overlay ordinance, and he suggested it needed to be more specific. In fact, even included, he called it an anatomy of a Main Street building, something that Heber's done that he liked, that showed maybe some consistency in an ordinance. Who was John?
That was John Jansen.
Well, Jensen.
John Jansen.
Okay.
JANSON.
OSON.
All right.
I've known John for years. I knew him when he used to wear fuzzy shoes and a planter tie. And that was a standard fare for planners back in the day. But yeah, he had some comments regarding the historic district and the ordinances that govern the historic district. I know we've covered that a lot. I remember, Mayor Little had a lot of concerns about some of the requirements and how discretionary they were. And I think we actually, did we get rid of we didn't get rid of the historic committee, but I think we eliminated some of those requirements and made it more general. And John was saying he thought it should be more specific, that he thought we would benefit from a more specific ordinance. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jake and Dave, but
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
And I just wondered why he was invited to the meeting. I mean, I realize he knows the expert, but
He's a senior long-range planner
sure.
with Jake's firm.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that was-
John is on our team as part of the downtown plan.
Okay. And so that was by an invitation by you then, Jake?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
I had good input.
Yeah, and John's written a lot of ordinances. He's almost done rewriting most of Ogden City's code, a 2-year project. But he's done that for a lot of cities, and we work together. And as we look at the downtown, we have the central commercial zone, and then we have the historic overlay. And the question is, as we move into implementation, I'm looking one step after a general plan update and adoption. The next step is code update. And there's 2 ways to do this. One, we can just take the zoning as is and tweak it, or the other option is, do we split it and make the historic overlay its own standalone zone, and central commercial, would stay as is, the central commercial. And that may be a good way to go. And then the historic overlay could be rewritten to match the vision of the general plan and the downtown plan. And there was even discussion of taking out the historic word. We still want history to be part of it, but not necessarily that we don't want to feel like we're going back into a movie theater or something like that, a set. And so it could even just be Commercial Street or Front Street or, whatever is kind of the idea there. But anyway, we were just having discussion as what to do with zoning in particular to the downtown. And is that fixing as is or new ordinances matching the vision? But the biggest issue with the historic overlay is it's a lot of shoulds in there. Builder should do this, builder should do that with, color and all those kind of things. But it's not very clear and black and white in terms of what is required of them to maintain that quality that we want for the commercial street area.
So it appears, it sounds like there's more discussion then down the road.
Yes, there's a lot more. There's a lot
Okay.
more discussion.
Yeah.
That was just kind of priming the pump.
Kind of an introduction. I appreciate your direction. Thanks. That's all I have. Thank you, Steve.
Any other comments? I just have one question for Gary on Mayor Little. I've talked to him a time or two, and what specifically was his biggest concerns about the historic district?
Perhaps, I don't know, I'd hate to put words in his mouth, but it was more, there was some reluctance to adopt some new things that would be consistent with the old things. And there was some prohibition of doing that. Am I
I can add a little bit,
Right,
yeah, a little
correctly?
bit to that.
okay?
I was interested in Ray's comments also.
Yeah. I
The
probably got it wrong.
No.
John program, he showed he called it an anatomy of a Main Street building. And it was a picture of a building, and he had maybe 10 different ways that building could look. And then he allowed a developer to pick at least, I think, 3 or 4 components from that building if they wanted to upgrade or build a new building in Heber's historic downtown area. Part of Ray's concern was, well, we've got buildings that have been built in different time periods and different design, and historically, there hasn't been any structure as to the design and to the look of the building. And that is I think Ray's comment was that is our historic component. That's what makes it historic, is because it wasn't specific. And so that begs the question, if we have that anatomy, that plan, and there we go, perfect. If we have that 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, will all of our buildings look like this right here, or to some degree? And not that it's a bad thing, but I think Ray's concern was that it may take away from what's the word?
Unique.
Yeah, ambience of what we have right now. Is that,
That's probably a good summary of it.
yeah, similar to what he was talking about? So, yeah, I think all good information, and I'm not sure, when we're not here to decide tonight what's right and what's wrong, but because I look at that building right there, and it looks like a historic building. I'm happy to, I could see a Main Street like that, but then you wouldn't see a Main Street like we've got today either.
Have any more?
Well, I mean, no. No, I'll pass.
Well, future discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at,
Yep.
the Vallis, when you think, what are we going to do with that building right there, I mean.
Take the scaffolding down.
Please.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's, I don't know.
No.
I don't know what we do there, I don't know.
You know, Jake, I appreciate your willingness
I'll
to,
say
to
this.
address it too. So
I think-
again, we appreciate the input.
Okay, so we're not voting or anything on this,
No.
but
Mm.
you know, sometimes taking, how do I put this? Sometimes people have a broad view of things and you could get a guy in here saying, hey, I think I could take this building. Let's do this and let's make it look like this. But if we have such a strict ordinance, then we're kind of restricting him as to, it's gotta be this, look, it's gotta be this, it's got, even with 10 options. I'm saying there may be 50 options that he could look at instead of just the 10 if we had it restrictive. And so, you know,
Maybe a combination of, yeah, what
exactly, I'm saying
of
kind of
the
the,
organized
'cause-
versus the other.
I help me out here, Mayor and Dave and Gary. Do you recall at planning meeting the other night, I asked him the question specifically. I said, so are you saying that our historic overlay is too restrictive? Do you remember how he answered that?
Were you asking Ray or were you asking?
No,
Oh, John.
yeah,
John.
I remember, I do remember the question.
yeah.
being
I
raised.
specifically said, so are you saying that our historic overlay is a little bit too restrictive? It doesn't give potential businesses or builders us enough latitude to, you know, and he answered that, and he didn't necessarily agree with what I said, but he said, you didn't call it restrictive, but he did talk about how we probably need to make some changes to it. So I don't know.
if,
Yeah, he
Kind of
felt
just
it,
what you said, Eric, are we kind of,
well,
it needs more.
if you were
needs to
building
be
a
more
brand new
specific.
from the
Could you-
start,
yeah.
right? If we were starting all over and we had a brand new start, okay, it'd be like a HOA. You've got to have this,
Yeah.
you got to check these boxes, right? Because we want this to have a certain look. But also, we're not starting all over from scratch. I kind of do. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about some of the places I've traveled. They don't all look the
yeah, I don't
exact
know.
same.
If
We
we have an interesting front street
do. We absolutely do.
that we've worked on for 30 years, 40, forever,
It made a movie.
and made a movie. Using two of the buildings, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, we
Just my
have.
thought. We're not voting on it.
Mine
We
too,
are.
mine
So
too.
I appreciate the input. And if there's no other comments, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Jake.
Yeah.
What did, I mean, what did?
There's our next mayor right there. The last one standing.
One of the things we need to do is
We need to get the scaffolding down for
a
one
time
thing.
limit on construction.